You know, the story of the fall in Genesis is probably one of the most famous stories in Western culture. But what if it's not just a simple tale about disobedience and, getting punished for it? In this explainer, we're going to look at the fall as something else entirely, like a deep psychological map that actually charts the birth of human self-consciousness and the huge rupture it created in how we experience the world.
This one line right here, this sets the whole stage. Before anything really happens, we're shown this state of perfect, seamless integration. And it's not just about not wearing clothes, right? It's about a total lack of self-judgment, of vulnerability, of all the division that shame brings. This is our starting point. This is paradise.
So to really get what was lost, we've got to redefine what we mean by paradise. Forget the perfect weather and fruit trees for a second. Think of it more as a psychological state, a state of being.
This idea of an unrealized world is everything here. In this state, there's no sharp line drawn between me and the world. I mean, there's no one there to suffer, because there's no defined I that's separate from everything else to feel that suffering. It's just a state of pure, unthinking, blissful harmony.
And this is the key, right here. Being unself-conscious means you're just living completely in the flow. You don't have that ability to step outside of yourself and go, hey, that's me thinking that, or, why am I feeling this way? There's no inner critic because there's no inner audience to perform for.
Well, of course, that state of harmony couldn't last. The whole point of the story is to walk us through the exact moment everything changed, that critical event that just shatters this unity and gives birth to the self as we know it today.
Pay attention to the language here. It says their eyes were opened. Now, obviously, their eyes were open before, they could see, but this is something new. Now, they see themselves being seen. This is the moment they get what the source material calls unbearable knowledge, the knowledge of their own vulnerability, their own separateness.
So you can see this dramatic pivot. On one side, you've got that integrated, unself-conscious state, and on the other, the world after the rupture. Harmony gets replaced by this terrifying new awareness of being vulnerable. Unity is completely fractured into division. And that state of being unashamed, well, it's replaced by its painful opposite.
This new self-awareness kicks off an immediate and honestly, a catastrophic psychological chain reaction. This isn't some slow burn decline, it's an instant collapse from communion into concealment. Just look how fast this all happens. Boom. First, they realize they're naked, they're vulnerable, and that's shame. The immediate reaction? Cover up, conceal the self with fig leaves. That leads to hiding from God, which is driven by fear. And then finally, when they're confronted, the bond between them just shatters into a blame game.
Adam's confession here is so telling. He doesn't just say, I hid. He connects all the dots for us. He says he heard the voice, which made him aware of himself, which then triggered the fear of his own nakedness, his vulnerability. And it was that fear that drove him to hide.
And when hiding doesn't work, what's next? Blame. Adam points the finger at Eve, the woman whom you gave me. So he's ultimately blaming God, and Eve, she turns around and blames the serpent. In an instant, their communion is broken. They're not a we anymore. They're separate, pointing fingers, just a couple of isolated individuals.
So this new internal fragmentation, this disorder in their minds, in their relationships, in their bodies, it starts to get mirrored in the world around them. The external world basically becomes a reflection of their new, disordered internal state.
You know, these so-called curses, you can actually read them not as some random punishment, but as the direct fallout of this new, self-aware existence. The sorrow of childbirth is the self's experience of the body's pain. Work becomes toil because now it's something I have to do to survive. It's not just a harmonious activity. The ground itself feels cursed because nature is now this external thing to be fought against. And for the very first time, the self is stuck with the knowledge of its own ending, mortality.
To really grasp the scale of this collapse, there's a concept from neuroscience that works as this incredible metaphor, dieschesis. It's what happens when a single localized injury in the brain causes a whole cascade of problems across the entire system.
And this is exactly what the myth is describing. The fall isn't just one problem among many, it is the lesion. It's that singular rupture of gaining self-consciousness. And from that one single event, the entire system of human experience becomes disordered. Our relationships with our bodies, with each other, with our work, with nature, the whole thing is thrown into disarray.
Okay, there's a diagram from the source material that really helps to map out this entire cosmic and psychological drama. It shows how the world was fundamentally remade by this one event.
So this diagram lays out the whole journey.
It starts over on the left with what's called the pre-cosmogonic egg, which is just a symbol for that undifferentiated pre-conscious unity, total wholeness. From that, paradise is created. But then, the introduction of this new knowledge, it triggers a descent and disintegration into the world we all know, a fragmented world of experience where we exist as these self-aware, separate individuals.
And here's the kicker. There's no going back. The expulsion from the garden, the flaming sword, it's not just about keeping Adam and Eve out of a physical place. It's a symbol for the irreversible nature of self-consciousness. Once you know, you can't unknow. That state of innocence is gone for good.
So this is what we're left with. The birth of self-consciousness is framed as the ultimate tragedy. It dooms us to work and shame and death. But, and this is what the source material points out, this is the very same event that makes us human. It's what allows for courage, for art, for the entire story of history. This leads to this theological idea of felix culpa, which means the fortunate fault. So was this catastrophic rupture somehow necessary? That's the huge question the myth leaves hanging in the air.